All right, that's it. The AP is calling this race. I am 99% sure this is the definitive meta build for the character after trying out every other build pretty extensively in Havoc. Knife set up like this, I can explain. Don't worry. This is also as valid, but I'll talk about that in a minute. Dual auto pistols like this. Curio. Talents like this. All right. What the hell? And stim lab like this. What the hell is going on with this knife, Tanner? I promise I haven't gone off the deep end yet. It's just the same mentality as Psyker, because this is just a Psyker with guns. If you are not pulling out your ranged weapon and shooting hordes, elites, specials, whatever, you are doing about 1/4 the DPS that you should be doing with this build. And because of pickpocket, you should never really be struggling for ammo. So the idea is the knife literally only exists to take you from place to place. I'm aware most people aren't going to enjoy that or even remotely want to play like that. So as an alternative, allow me to offer you shivs. Shivs are easily the best melee weapon on the Psyker, or not, on the fucking scum, slip of the tongue. Something to keep in mind, always double up on the shivs on these guys, because as you saw, you still get your shivs back and it like doubles your DPS. That was without Uncanny or Precog stacked up. For these guys, only throw one. And for basically, if it's humanoid, throw one. If it's a crusher, throw two. Also, something to keep in mind, I hope this works first try. As you just saw, the dot killed that guy, and for some reason, I still got the shiv back. Oh, another thing, by the way, if hypercritical kills this guy, which, yeah, whatever, I'll just post a clip at the end. If hypercritical kills this guy, you'll still get the shiv back for some reason. It's like the only thing on kill that hypercritical procs. Okay, the guns are set up like this for a specific reason. We want to have mobility because you actually need it to move around on this character, and if you dump collateral, it doesn't affect anything for pinning fire. You still can't stagger these guys in one hit. 80 collateral can't do that either, so it still takes 2, and you get the same pinning fire value from literally everything. Maybe like a Mauler, you only get 4 stacks. Yeah, you get 4 stacks on a Mauler before it dies instead of 5. That's literally the only difference between 60 and 80 collateral. Whereas mobility is actually pretty useful for staying alive on this character. You absolutely need CDR on this character for a reason I'll talk about. Toughness is also pretty important. I'll again talk about that when it relates to the talent tree. But as you can see, I have 204 toughness. This character, especially with this build, actually gets a fairly substantial amount of toughness and toughness damage reduction. So the tankiness usually isn't too big of a problem. Why max health though? Well, you see, we have 173 health like this. 173 health is just enough to where in Havoc 40, after your health gets reduced, let's say you take a hit from this guy, and then you take bleed through from this guy. You're left with like 61 HP, which means if you fill your toughness up, get hit by this guy, and then get hit by this guy again, you will stay alive. You'll still have like 20 HP left. Whereas if you go no HP, it is very, very, very common in Havoc 40 for a scum with 0 sources of HP to die in 2 hits of melee bleed through. Which is effectively, this 15% health is effectively a 33% increase to your EHP and mistakes you can make, which is huge value considering it doesn't even cost you a talent point. If you insist that's bad somehow, then you can go revive speed instead. I really don't recommend gunner damage res because of desperado. Okay, let's talk about talents. In your face is literally just free range damage. Why would you not ever take it if you're going to be shooting 99% of the time? Quick and Deadly is basically in your face part 2, because you're always going to be dodging around like whoosh, 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 etc. Voice of Tertium is shockingly, it's way better than you think. So 2 things I'd like to showcase. 1, let me show off Voice of Tertium. Yeah, you get 8% toughness back on ranged kill. You shoot into a ranged horde with Wild Abandon like you're the guy from Hatred, and all of a sudden your toughness just magically comes back. It's like Out for Blood, but slightly better. Precision Violence is only being taken so we can get Float Like a Butterfly. So Float Like a Butterfly is not 20% melee criticals chance, which you may be misled to believe because these 2 nodes are only active on melee despite not saying it. No, this is just 20% universal crit chance, including for your guns. Huge DPS. And Precision Violence, again, because of your crit chance, which is not being displayed right now because I don't have the thing stacked up, but when you're fighting and dodging around and stuff, you have 75% crit chance. So as you're running with your other knife, and you just let it go, you will constantly be getting 12% back. You know, you do this, 12%, you know, you just do this, 12%. As you're running to and from, you're just constantly getting random chunks of toughness back. It's just an extra layer of survivability. Speed loader is way more generous than you think it is. So you see how we just got it from here? Yeah, this is 12 meters. I don't know when you're ever not getting a kill within 12 meters as this character to not proc this. Calling for a timeout when you're literally only fighting with guns, it actually has like 30-40% uptime. It's genuinely pretty impressive. So it's just a free source of toughness reduction, which you need. So this is the first big pivot point. Chem Grenade is clearly the most busted blitz in the entire game. You really should be using it, but maybe you want to be different. The Boombringer is okay. It's not something I'd recommend. It's definitely the weakest of the three. But after the buffs, it's passable. Blackout Grenades I want to talk about. If you take Blackout Grenades, drop maxed out chems, take Pocket Toxin, and instead run the stim like this. You can't really get away with running 75-second stim and not Pocket Toxin and maxed out chems. And there's a reason we don't do this. I'll talk about it later when we talk about the Keystone. Okay, so Gang Tough is required to take. You would take it anyway. This is TDR, this is TDR, this is a lot of TDR, and this is DR. Yeah, this class can actually get surprisingly survivable. Nimble, I am aware Nimble is bugged. Instead of adding 50% to your iframes, it's effectively halving your iframes. However, the dodge extended with the knife, especially an 80 mobility knife, I mean, this is ridiculous. Look at this. We literally just went like 6, almost 7, 6 on the tail end of 7 meters in one dodge. That on its own is good enough to use, just as is. So if this is already strong enough to be useful most of the time when it's bugged, imagine what it's going to be like when they bug fix it, knock on wood, hopefully pretty soon. Yeah, it's going to be great. Tis But a Scratch is honestly terrible in Havoc. I'm just going to be straight up with you. Regular shooters can kill like 40-50% of your toughness in about a second. This is 10% toughness over 3 seconds. Fat Shark, please, God, do not, just get this out of the way. This is horrible placement. Jittery was so much better in this place. You actually made the class less survivable in higher-end content like this. Seriously, just add like a Viernt like this, instead of like near like this. Anyway, so let's talk auras. Anarchist is pretty terrible. 5% crit chance is literally one weapon perk. It's like, who cares? But I'd like to talk about Gunslinger Improved. This aura is amazing, and here's how it works. So you grab this tin, and do you see how I got that plus 10 there? Yeah, that's 10% of that TIM, although it's slightly more than 10%. It's more like 12, but whatever, we'll ignore that for now. And it will give that to everyone on your team. This is important because these tins are 10% of your total ammo, in case you don't know that. So this is like a 10% pickup, which means that 10% of that pickup is like 1% for everyone else. Then red ammo packs are 50% pickups, which is 5% for everyone else. However, when you have Gunslinger Improved and you have Survivalist, it's pretty difficult for your teammates to actually use all that ammo. Though I will say, if you're playing with good players that are aware you have Gunslinger, you have Survivalist, etc., and they can shoot borderline non-stop themselves, which is always more DPS than melee, by the way, on virtually every character, then it's absolutely worth going Gunslinger. However, most people just aren't shooting enough as is, even with just Survivalist, so it would not be a huge mistake to go Anarchist. Next, I want to talk about this Toughness boost real quick. This is not optional. So we're going to take this. How much toughness? I have 204 toughness. How much do you think I'm going to go down to? Let's play a little quiz. Type in the comments right now. How much toughness do you think I go down to? That's right, 163. Yeah, this one talent is like 41 toughness, purely because of all the toughness bonuses. This one node legitimately makes up like 30-something% of your toughness. It's some ridiculous number like that. This is not optional. You cannot afford to not take this toughness node. Desperado. So this ability is... it's interesting because it doesn't actually really do anything on the surface. You don't get damage innately. You don't get anything like that's obvious. However, what you do get is incredibly powerful. So think about this more. This is going to sound crazy, but hear me out. Think about this like Psyker Bubble Shield. So your whole team's in cover. There's 500 Havoc 40 gunners. So what you do is you pop this, pull your knife out, run out, go up here, pull your weapon out, and you just kill all of them. And this will give you more duration so that you can keep ignoring the gunners, and then you just run back. It's literally that simple. You're basically a glorified bubble shield like this. However, there is some interesting tech to keep in mind. So, first and foremost, let me just get myself health here. So, first and foremost, you can pump this to get your toughness back. It is worthwhile doing like that, because you can just be low on toughness, pop this, get a bunch back, and just spring into action. You also get a free reload, as you may have noticed, and it doesn't take ammo to do this. So if you're ever in a situation where you need ammo, you can just pop this and go to get your pickpocket chain going. See how I just got my ammo there? And then for the next, like, 30 seconds, you don't have to worry about it. Pick your targets is just free damage, and it's a lot of damage. 15% rending is almost half of a red stim, and 15% range damage. Ironically, this is about as good as your stim. If you look, this is 15% rending. This is like 20% strength. So this is, oh my god, I clicked on everything but the thing I wanted. I'm stupid. This is basically a second stim lab stim if you go the rending route. Just think about it like that, but it's active all the time. Why no focused resolve? We just don't have the points for it. I would love to take this. If I could just go unload into pickpocket, I would totally take this. It's 11% off your cooldown, which is very important because you feel pretty weak when you don't have desperado running. So let's take this left to right. Unload, hypercritical, pickpocket. If you're going to go shivs, go hypercritical. If you're not going to go shivs, go something like this. You'll probably find better results. But I know most people are going to be interested in the shiv routing because it's just more fun and less sweaty. So unload, in case you don't know how this works, it's literally just blaze away. So you reload, and now every 10% ammo we spend, you get 2% damage. Which, by the way, when you have unload stacked up, pinning fire and blaze away, you're getting like 100% extra damage for the guns. That's a bit of an exaggeration. It's closer to like 80%, but still. So think about it like this. That 2% additional range damage, after you've spent 70% of your magazine, that's 14% range damage on top of the 2%. You kind of are pigeon-held into taking this because it is a crap ton of range damage because you're only mag dumping. Hypercritical, I have an entire video going over this. If it confuses you or you're wondering why I'm taking it, I have an entire video going over it. It's only for shivs. And pickpocket is very self-explanatory. This is what enables you to never stop shooting. Punching above one's weight is damage against the things that need the most damage in the game, so why would you not take it? Hive City Brawler is basically a permanent 20% damage reduction. And this is why this knife is set up the way that it is, with stamina and sprint efficiency. The only time you lose stamina as this character is when you're sprinting. And you are sprinting a lot. So just look at this. We're going to go from right here in the middle to right there in that pillar. And I just want you to keep in mind. So this is about 20 meters. 80% stamina. So we only would have lost about 4% extra damage reduction. Now we're going to run back about 20 meters. And you can see we lose 10% damage reduction. So it took about twice as long, and we lost 10% flat damage reduction. This isn't toughness damage reduction, so there's no diminished scaling by stacking a bunch of multiplicative sources of the same thing. So it will cost you about 3 to 4 times as much damage reduction to move with the shivs, and you'll move about half speed, which means it's harder to position for your guns. That's why a lot of people prefer the knife and just foregoing melee entirely. Okay, so extra pouches is so high value, there's no reason not to take it. Because chem grenades, even if chem grenades weren't busted, you'd still take it. Because you're actually surviving off melee or grenade pickups on the ground, sorry for that flub. You're actually surviving off grenade pickups off the ground on this character, unlike everyone else. Which means this is just like 33% extra grenades per pickup, as opposed to what you would get regularly. But also 25% as well, depending on how you want to frame the equation. I'm stupid, don't listen to me. So basically the point is, every 3 grenade pickups, you are getting 1 grenade canister for free. That's really all that matters. So if you have 3 grenades and you pick up 3 grenade canisters, you just get 9 grenades. obviously. But if you have extra pouches and you pick up 3 grenade canisters at 4, that's 12 grenades. You generated an extra grenade canister's worth of grenades for the same amount of pickups. And that kind of value, when you're talking about something as powerful as these blitzes are, that is crazy value. And this is also ignoring the fact that you needed to get to the stuff below this anyway. Sample Collector is obvious and should be in just about every single scum build. I don't know why you wouldn't use it. It basically doubles the amount of stims you get to use in a game, and stims are when you're at your strongest. You would be insane not to take this, in my humble opinion. So, chemical dependency is so head and shoulders above the other 2 keystones, it's actually kind of a joke. So I just want to put this into perspective for you. With maxed out chems, this is 20% crit chance. Hello, Blazing Piety on the Zealot. This is literally the equivalence of an entire keystone in its own right here. 20% toughness damage reduction is not nearly as good as 25% flat damage reduction, so we'll chalk this up to about half a keystone's worth of power. And then 40% CDR with an asterisk. We need to talk about that because it's not what you think. 40% CDR is very much worth more than 1 keystone. So you're looking at about 2.5 keystones worth of keystone for your keystone. We use the whole keystone here at Lindbergh Industries. This is a nuts keystone, and it's pretty required because your biggest moment to make plays is when you pop your desperado and you start running in, because desperado is insane. So having the most desperados as possible is incredibly important. Now, excuse me, I would like to dig a little deeper. So let me just max out stim dependency real quick. Which, fun trick, if you're testing this for yourself in the Psychanium, fun little trick to quickly get your stim stacks going. You can do that. So, if we have, let me ask you a question. If we have a 45-second cooldown, and we reduce that by 12%, what are we left with? 39. And then we reduce that by 40%, what are we left with? What the hell? What are we left with? We should be left with about 23.76%. But I'm using a stopwatch right now to actually time this as we talk about it, because some people have noticed that you're actually getting scammed out of a little bit of cooldown, which is true. This is not actually 40% CDR. What it does is it makes your ability tick up 40% faster. But for some reason, chem dependency is the only keystone in the entire game that has diminishing returns with itself. As in, instead of, okay, so that was the time, and right here, boom, 21.51. Give me about a couple microseconds for human error. Well, if you do the math, which I've already done it for you here, 45 minus 12% is 39. 39 minus 40% is 23. So we're actually getting scammed out of about, like, 4 seconds worth of cooldown. It's really not that big of a deal, but hey, I mean, they want you to spend an entire skill point for 5, so I want my 4 extra seconds, Fat Shark. Anyway, in case you're wondering, if you don't run CDR in the Curios at all, I already did this test before recording this, you get 32 seconds. So it is absolutely super mega worth running the CDR. But anyways, so the stim lab is the next thing I'd like to talk about. So this right here is something I don't see people do. They either run 1 full stim like this, or they run 2 full stims like this. Personally, unless you're going to run blackout grenades with the toxin on Blitz, I don't think you can get away with running 2 stims. Because that 75-second cooldown puts you out of range of maxed out chems really badly. Because you have to wait 15 seconds for the stim to wear off, so that leaves you with 45 seconds to reduce that 75-second cooldown by some, like, 30 seconds. And then you have to use it instantly as well, which might not be optimal in its own right. That feels really stinky. So what you'd rather do is just get rid of maxed out chems. But that means losing 5% TDR. That means losing 5% critical hit chance. That means losing 10% ability cooldown. That just makes the keystone itself like 33% worse. That's, well, technically 25 in that instance. I got it backwards. I was thinking of this when I was talking about this, and I was thinking about this when talking about this. Duh. Anyway, so you really don't want to not take maxed out chems, but something you can do. See how this is a 45-second cooldown? Well, now it's only a 51-second cooldown. So this only added like 10% to the stim cooldown, but it's giving us 12.5% extra ultimate cooldown. And honestly, you really don't care if you stim under the ult or not, because the ult only gives you 15% damage in rending. It's good, but it's nothing groundbreaking. The actual Desperado ability is just kind of whatever, outside of all the insane stuff that it does that isn't related to the damage. So it's totally fine to just, like, shoot a bunch, pop Desperado, and then push. I actually recommend this. Pushing with the Desperado so that you can get kills to get your stim on cooldown, and then stim after Desperado goes on cooldown so that you can use this to get your Desperado back faster, and you can keep looping it like that. Remember the ABCs of video games. Always be casting. See, like we do this, and now you see it's coming back even faster than it was before. ABCs. Always be casting. This is not Final Fantasy. We don't have to line up 2-minute buff windows. What you want to be doing is, if it's on cooldown and you can gain value from it, put it on cooldown as fast as possible so you can gain as much value as possible and get as much uptime. That is the secret to success in all video games, by the way. Yeah, I think that covers just about everything. I will talk about the other 2 builds that people like to run, because I've min-maxed those as well. Then we can break down every individual weapon. Alright, see you later.